So I'd like to introduce André GUEDEL. He's the head of international, he's KPMG's crypto, I don't have your title here.
Shall I do it?
You run, I apologize, the Zurich office of KPMG. Where he's going to be talking about crypto crowdfunding, a new opportunity for value and innovation projects. As the head of KPMG's Switzerland International HQ cluster, it's a mouthful. Yeah. André draws on over 20 years of international experience to advise on strategic site selection, business expansion, and relocation in Europe. His core expertise covers strategic site selection support for business expansion and relocation in Europe. Salary compensation, that's an important one, across Europe. Market entry for life sciences companies in Europe. Strategy consulting for public foreign direct investment. And management of international crypto crowdfunding projects. Everybody please welcome André.
Michael, thank you very much. It's great being here at this Meritech forum. I was invited 2 months ago when I was speaking at the iForum in Kyiv, to join here this presentation. Again, my name is André GUEDEL. I work mainly with foreign-owned multinational companies which are setting up operations in Switzerland and do business across Europe. And for the past 12 months, however, I was mainly focusing on 2 markets. One is the ICO, initial coin offering market, and the other one is life sciences, the biopharmaceutical companies which are starting operations in Europe. Today I will speak about crypto crowdfunding and how that can foster value innovation. Now, my challenge was when I was preparing this presentation that it was not really clear, how much the audience knows about crypto crowdfunding. And I, at least now during my talks which I had, I have identified a few individuals here who are very familiar with crypto crowdfunding. So maybe a quick question. Can you, everybody who knows about crypto crowdfunding, please raise the hand. So it's 2 gentlemen here as well, I guess, huh?
Who don't know and who don't know anything.
About ICO?
So who don't know, yeah?
Who know about ICO? Who are familiar with ICO?
Sorry, we just got
Yeah, so, okay, so it's about mix. So I think it makes sense that we did do a quick introduction. What is crypto crowdfunding and how it can serve value innovation. Now, to be very honest with you, here's the agenda. We talk about very quickly about value innovation, then the crypto crowdfunding concept, and then crowdfunding via Switzerland. This shall be an interactive session. I mean, I'm very well aware that, being the last speaker before lunch is quite challenging, but being the first speaker after lunch, it's more difficult even. So I try to make it, interactive. Please interrupt me, ask questions if you have any. Value innovation, we heard this morning from Pablo and others about this concept. There are different ways to see value innovations. For me, one of the most important part is actually, that the company is stepping out of the industrial cluster where they are in. They break the rules. They look for new models how to serve clients. What is very important in my view, actually, they do not want to split the client base. They want to find the common denominator of what the clients all want to have, what they need. They break with the existing paradigms about how an industry is being run. And what is also very important, in my view, is that they create some sort of an ecosystem. We have here some, companies which, can be seen as disruptors, but also as value innovators. We know these companies all. Now the question will be, going forward, which of these companies could have used or actually could have benefited from a crypto crowdfunding approach to finance their operations. We know that Uber, for instance, is still loss-making. Airbnb has been profitable last year for the first time. So it took them about 7-8 years to become profitable. Tesla, we don't even want to speak about it. Apple, of course, it's a great value innovator. I mean, they disrupted the mobile phone market in 2000, and I think it was 2003 when the iPhone came. And ever since that, the Nokias and Ericssons, etc., they were just disappearing. A few things to the network, to the ecosystem which they created. And I like that particularly with Airbnb and with Uber. They were able to create an entire new ecosystem. And that's something I will later on come back, which is essential for crypto crowdfunding. Tesla as well. I mean, for me, Tesla, it's actually, the car itself is nothing but a battery pack on wheels. Battery pack on wheels. Nothing really exciting. But what is truly exciting with Tesla, in my view, is the fact that they set up, at least in Western Europe, I know how it is in Ukraine, a full entire network of loading stations. Network where I can plug in my Tesla and reload it. And that's the exciting part about Tesla, creating such a network. And creating network going forward is an essential part of a successful ecosystem. Now, the concept of crypto crowdfunding. When we look at traditional financing of projects, we see the typical ways of how a startup company, but also an existing company can finance its growth and its product development. The venture capital role is very well known. I do not have to go too much into details about that, but it's a very complex one. The company has to interact with sophisticated venture capitalists who want to see business plans, who want to see a track record of the management, who want to see forecasts, and then plus they want to have a share in the company. So it's a very established way and a very proven and successful way to finance growth within companies. But there are options. The IPO, initial public offering, often comes after the venture capital investment. Venture capital want to exit, they launch an IPO. It's a very complex, costly, and time-consuming and highly regulated way to finance growth. But it's obviously, even nowadays, a very popular way and a very successful way to generate growth. However, we all remember, or at least the people in my age, we remember the good old days of the internet bubble where we saw hundreds of IPOs popping up and many of them then obviously greatly failing. We talked about that with my two colleagues here from Switzerland. We have even some interesting connection here. Debt financing, also obviously a way to finance operations, very well-known path. Royalty financing is mainly used in the field of pharmaceutical companies, where biotech companies are actually selling licenses to big pharmaceutical companies for special markets or for special applications or for special products. It also exists in the IT world, but mainly in the life science world, it's a very popular way. So what is crypto crowdfunding? It is a concept which has emerged the first time in 2013. It's a way to fund operations or activities through issuing tokens, some sort of cryptocurrencies. Most of them are based on a ERC20 platform, which is a platform provided by Ethereum. The buyers of the tokens actually, they do not have, in most cases, they have basically no rights. The only hope they have is that the token increases in value. There is possibility to attach certain rights to a token, like using a services or using a product, or maybe even have voting rights. And sometimes, they get rights to be part of a community. But the token buyer actually exchanges cryptocurrency in most cases, in some cases also fiat, against a token which has been issued by the company which is raising the fund. And the company which raises the fund gets cryptocurrency, in most cases Bitcoin or Ethereum, other popular currencies in exchange, which then they can use to develop the platform and the product. What is important to understand is that the token buyer is neither an investor, a pure investor, neither a pure consumer. It's something in between. I call it a contributor. It is somebody who is contributing to the growth of an ecosystem, to be part of it. That's why he wants to do this. I mean, how does crowdfunding has started? It was actually invented, like many good things, by artists. Some 20 years ago, artists who wanted to finance a movie or who wanted to finance an exhibition, they started crowdfunding. It was actually in New York where their first crowdfunding party started, in Brooklyn somewhere in artist lofts, and they just collected some money, and in exchange they got, for instance, tickets for the premiere of the movie or a small painting. So it was something which was used in an alternative financing model. Then it moved over quite quickly into the established financing schemes with crowdfunding platforms which offered to quote-unquote serious business the possibility to start crowdfunding on such platforms, but it was still in the fiat world. And then in 2013, the first ones came up with the idea, instead of raising fiat money and issuing tokens or coupons, they could do the same thing using the blockchain and using cryptocurrencies. The advantages of using a blockchain applied crypto crowdfunding system is that the tokens can be traded via the blockchain, and that's the big advantage to it. It's a traditional crowdfunding where tokens, you buy them, it's actually a piece of paper. It's very hard to sell it or to dispose it if you like.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Is a token almost equivalent to like a convertible note in a way, or maybe explain to me how you look at it?
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, I'll come back to that. You have different types of tokens. You have, you will see that you have utility tokens, equity token, and payment tokens.
Okay.
But it's a good question. Now, if you compare it now to the traditional founding system, what is the beauty about crypto crowdfunding? It's inexpensive, it's fast, and it's so far lightly regulated. So it's basically something really great for somebody who wants to launch a company, needs money, but is not willing or able to reach out to venture capitalists, doesn't want to do an IPO, doesn't get any credit. It's great if you want to have angel money. People are actually looking for angel investors. They can replace that by a crowdfunding. So this is a beautiful thing, at least if you look at first sight on it. And if you see here the necessary steps, I mean, what do you need to do? You create a business plan, you write a white paper. This white paper is basically something like a prospectus which explains why you are doing an ICO and what is the functionality of the tokens and how are the funds used which are raised and how are the tokens distributed. You select a country to do an ICO. We recommend that an ICO has some sort of a legal seat, a legal location, like Lithuania is very popular, Switzerland is also a very popular location. However, in this field, you see everything. You see ICOs, they don't even have a legal entity. They just put their address, wallet address on the website, and they're waiting for whatever is flowing in.
If you do an ICO, do you later on do an IPO?
That's a good question. I have a young colleague of mine. He just finished business school. He did an MBA in Madrid, and he asked me about the topic he chose for his final work, and I told him that he should do evaluation of post-ICO companies, because that's an important factor if they want to do an IPO later on. And he came up, he just sent me the slides actually yesterday, where he did a model how to evaluate post-ICO companies. This is a very, very difficult task. Because how do you evaluate the token? What's the value of a token? We don't know. And everybody who is in this field can't give a final answer, but at least he tried to build up a model on that. But in theory, that's possible. What we see more now, by the way, is actually venture capital financed companies which are looking to do an ICO. So you have VCs, and they ask their company, their portfolio company to do ICO, because for a VC, it's beautiful. I mean, it doesn't give away voting rights, property rights, everything. So then obviously the whole technical part, smart contract design for the release of the tokens, and then further on for the functionality of the token. Then the regulatory and tax aspects. Regulatory, depending on the jurisdictions where you are located, you have to follow certain local regulatory aspects. And then tax. Tax issue often disregarded. We see many ICO. How can I do that? I mean, but I mean, companies are raising 50 mil. And first thing what happens is taxman is coming and asking for a big chunk of it. And then they are shocked. That happens in Germany. Germany has a lot of ICOs, but tax rate in Germany is 29%. And you don't want to pay 29% on the 100 or 50 mil which you raised. So the tax issue is important. That's also one of the reasons why Switzerland is such a popular location.
So when does tax hit when you change it to fiat?
What's that?
When does a tax hit when you change it to fiat?
No, immediately. And then you already have a problem. But in changing, you raise money, 50 million, the taxman is coming and charging 29%, 30%, 50 million of that. How are you going to do that? First of all, you have to exchange it into fiat. Next to that, you got to find a bank which is accepting this money. So from there, you have then to transfer it to the account of the government. So
I want to comment.
Like illegal laundering of money. The tax
no, it has nothing to do with money laundering.
Turn in illegal.
What's that?
Almost turning cryptocurrency tokens into real cash.
Yes.
29%. Well, that's good business for the tax authorities.
It is good business for the tax authorities, but it's mainly a big challenge for the company which is running this ICO.
It is, absolutely.
Because they are here, many of them, they don't think about these topics. They just do an ICO. They end up with a lot of money in their wallets, and then what?
In crypto money.
In crypto money.
So then turn it into real money by tax authorities.
No, it's actually the company which has to turn it into real money, because the tax authorities,
Exactly.
they
That's
do not
what
accept
that-
fiat. The tax authorities only accept fiat. So the company has to exchange it into fiat and then pay the taxes.
We had a very similar situation in Lithuania where tax authority actually came to one of the companies who did the ICO and they were asking for the taxes, right? But they said like, what if we don't want to, what if we don't want to sell it now? We want to hold it for let's say, because the value will increase. And then as soon as we will exchange this, cryptocurrency into the fiat, so then you should come and ask us to pay, taxes. So they basically, they couldn't force them to pay taxes until they are kind of still keeping it as a cryptocurrency.
Oh, yeah?
As a physical asset,
Yeah.
let's say. It's a
Which is-
virtual asset, which is sort of like, it's not
Yeah.
real money. And the other problem which our tax authorities do have right now is like that the rate, like even if you like raise 200 to 50,000 Ethereum, so the rate is always changing. Like what is the cut date
From
like
which
when you're
one
saying like
you will
you
pay
need to pay
taxes?
like 30% from like what, July 1st? What's the date? So they're having a lot of problems and a lot of actual discussions in Lithuania how actually to deal with that, both legal and tax
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
Have there been any court decisions? Any court decisions enforcing, making a company pay?
Well, it depends on the jurisdiction.
Or have there been any decisions?
To my knowledge, not. I only can, I know how mainly the situation in Switzerland where we have a solution which is very convenient, ending up that you pay basically no taxes. It's called a tax ruling, so that's an advantage. We can start with the assumptions. I mean, the tax authorities, they always find a solution to tax you. And that's their job, and they are pretty good at it. No, but anyway, and then you have the marketing and launch platform. Launching is not that complex. What is increasingly complex is the entire marketing. I mean, when we look at the fact that there are so many ICOs currently going on, I mean, you really have to fight hard. I mean, the good old days, meaning June 2017, last year, we had Tezos, we had Bancor, we had in the US it was called the ICO which raised 250 million. That was easy. That was really the nice days. Tezos I think they made 250 million within 3 hours. And that's just unbelievable. these days are partially over. Now we have hundreds of ICOs every month, and the competition is quite fierce. So when we talk about tokens, and that is what was you, Michael's question, there are 3 different tokens. One is the security and asset token. This is basically something which is equivalent to a share or to a bond or to a security. It entitles the holder of a token, of this token, to get a part of the profit in form of dividends, in form of interests, maybe also in a buyback scheme. And this token is pretty close to issuing a normal share. I would call it, it's a quasi-ICO, because at the end of the day, you just do the same financing, but the tokens, instead of being traded on a regular exchange, or the shares being traded on regular exchanges, it's traded via the blockchain. On the other hand, you have these payment tokens. I'm now taking the model of the Swiss government, the Swiss Financial Market Authorization, which issued these three models. I mean, you can also see it differently, but for the Swiss financial market authorities, which are relevant to assess ICOs in Switzerland, there's also a payment token. The payment token, this is basically Ethereum, this is Ripple, this is eCash, Bitcoin Lite, etc. Those are tokens which have 3 functionality. One is the measurement of value. You can use the token to measure value. You can use the token to transfer value, and you can use the token actually to store value. Well, the storage of value with the cryptocurrency is questionable, given the huge volatility. But for them, a token which is used outside of an existing crypto system and used mainly as a payment system, this is a so-called payment token. And then in the middle, this is the most important token. This is the utility token. A utility token is a token which gives you access to a service, which gives you access to a platform, which has an underlying or several underlying smart contracts, which helps you to be part of an ecosystem. And the important thing is, if you look at utility tokens, in our view, is you can actually use that token to buy something, but you can also earn tokens when working or contributing to the network or to the ecosystem. Now, I mean, this is the story about crypto crowdfunding. 2013, we saw the first one. Mastercoin raised 5 million, pretty good. That was 5 years ago. Then Ethereum. 18 million. Ethereum Foundation was actually in Zug, and that's why Zug has become such a big center for crypto crowdfunding. It's now very big. You have big, large ICOs taking place in Zug, and when I get requests, I mean, the first thing is people want to go to Zug. They ask me, what is Zug? I know who has ever been to Zug? Yeah, you. Zug is actually a very small town. It's outside of Zurich. It's about 25 minutes away. It's a little bit like New York and Stanford. It's very affluent. You have a lot of big multinational companies. Glencore is in Zug. Obviously, you have Biogen, you have Amgen. It's a center for big US multinational companies. And then you have a lot of commodities traders and a lot of IT companies. And somehow, the anecdote goes, I know the lawyer who actually had Ethereum folks in his office some 4 or 5 years ago. He said there were some dudes walking into his office, clad in hoodies in their 20s, and he's a very serious, business lawyer. But he was the only one who granted them, 1 hour of his time. And he didn't understand anything. He said, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but then he set up a foundation, because he thought that might be the best solution, and he was quite right. And then it started with Ethereum, and after that you had all the others, Golem, Bancor, Monetas, everything. And then Waves was in 2015. Then in 2016 already 600 million. 2007 raised in total of 4 billion. I mean, you all know those figures. You have to imagine. And now, how does it look today? Well, I think you heard about the EOS ICO. They stopped last week, and they raised within 1 year of offering their ICO, they raised 4.2 billion. This is unbelievable. And then obviously Telegram. So how do the figures look like? In total, 10 billion year to date raised via ICOs, about 400 ICOs happening. Well, this is a substantial number. And if we compare it to the venture capital investment, at least the early stage VC investment, this is surpassing what's going on in the venture capital field. Here a list of the biggest one, Telegram. Telegram is a social media network. I know, who is not familiar with Telegram? You don't know? But yeah, Telegram is quite popular in Eastern Europe, in Southern Europe, but mainly also in the crypto world. 1.2 billion, or 1.4, and all in private sale. So this company, they didn't even do an ICO. They just sold it to 40 token buyers. This is quite an achievement. Then the Petro, well, that's something different. This is from Venezuela. This is also a way, to finance. It's backed by oil. It's backed by oil. It's more, in my view, it's more like an asset or security token. Then you had a lot of others. One is Envion, the one which raised 100 million. I think it's 100 million. Envion. These guys, it's actually a German professor who is offering mining rigs. So just putting together mining facilities paid by an ICO. And he got hacked. I mean, this company here is based in Zug, Switzerland. They got hacked by actually one of their developers. 11 million have gone. But small loss, yeah. I mean, the critical voices, I don't have to raise them myself. This is the Wall Street Journal. They analyzed 1,450 cryptocurrency offerings, and they found out that a large part of them are, not going to work going forward. Because the problem is with these ICO, they have to deliver. And we see so many ICOs which, they raise money, but they have difficulties to deliver because they are lacking the know-how, they are lacking the people, they're lacking a strategy, they're lacking a lot of things. And so the result is that, most of these ICOs will probably not, survive. Okay, so the bad thing is that the good thing? Good. I think it's neither one nor the other. It's just a fact of life. And if I buy tokens, I have to be aware that the risks of, that I lose my money are quite substantial. And being a friend of free markets, I believe as long as tokens are not sold to a broader public, which is not knowledgeable about that, I think that's the way it is. Again, we are coming back to what happened in the early of this century with the dot-com bubble. There were so many startup companies selling stocks, and nothing happened. At the end of the day, a few of them survived. And look at the industry now. It's thriving, it's strong. It didn't kill the market, but it just laid the groundwork for future development. But we have to be aware that a large part of this is not going to work, and everybody of us who is reading white papers know about the risks and the challenges the companies are facing. However, there are ICOs which have reached the stage where the tokens, the utility tokens, can have a possibility to function. Jota is a good example. It's a German company. They have been around for several years. They did an ICO 3 years ago. Now, finally, after 3 years, the application seems to work. They work with Siemens. They work with other German companies. They offer an Internet of Things application. Ethereum, obviously, very present, working quite well. Even so, the protocols and the software, etc., is questionable. Still developing a lot of this thing, but it's working. Cardano, Neo, it's a Shanghai, or I would say Hong Kong, Asia-based alternative to Ethereum. Many of you are familiar with that. It's operating. Golem, Bancor, They are here, EOS, coming back to EOS, they did the first attempt to launch a beta version. I think they started, and about 24 hours later they stopped again because it was, at least to say so, not really functional, but at least they did something. So there are examples of functional tokens which have been sold to the public. Now, and I think that's a very important slide. We get a lot of calls from companies which are telling us that they want to do an ICO. They are interested, they think, look, this is a great thing, we want to finance our operations through an initial coin offering. And I have sometimes my doubts that they understand the concept between this way of doing business. An ICO is based on the fact that the community or an ecosystem is being created, and as me, as a buyer of those tokens, I become part of this ecosystem. I have to, I'm not an investor. I'm not expecting a return on investment. I'm not also only a consumer. I'm something in between. I compare an ICO to creating its own country and releasing its own currency, a banknote. And people in this country, they can accept this banknote as a mean of payment. And if the economy in this newly founded country is going well, the money will be used to pay people for their work, but also to pay for products and services. So it will enter the circulation, the monetary circulation. And if this can be reached, then yes, an ICO can make a lot of things, but it's decentralized business. It's not a centralized business where you have, on one hand, the investors, they want a return on investment, and then you have a clear mandate to create a profit. I will show that on the next slide. What you have to create is an ecosystem where the token is being used, and through that, the token creates value and increases in value. I mean, the good examples obviously are Bitcoin and Ethereum and others, which were worth 50 cents or 10 cents when they were launched, and now they have 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times folded in their value because people are using it. They are getting paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, they are using Bitcoins and Ethereum. So this is what I mean, creating an ecosystem. And many of my clients, they don't get it. They come with the great idea that they say, look, we want to issue a token, we give 50%. We give 50% on discount on the future use of our software. But is that truly attractive? I don't know. I mean, I just get a discount of 50%, but I don't know whether this software will work going forward. That's not, I mean, with that model, I mean, they won't attract any token buyers. This is not enough. They have to understand that they have to a certain degree give up on their business and make it a community-based enterprise, which is an ecosystem where everybody can contribute, can pay for it, but also getting paid. People who are using this software should be getting paid to increase the network. They should maybe getting paid to be some sort of miners if they go with an individual platform, or they should be getting paid to promote, to bring in new participants. And that's something which we try to educate the companies we are seeing that say, look, I mean, you should not work on trying to raise funds. You should work on creating an ecosystem. That's a very important slide. I mean, and then we compare the profit allocation. Traditional, you have traditional business model, which is a very good business model. This is nothing to be criticized. It's, you have revenues, you have expenses, and then you generate profit. And the profit is being distributed among the factors of production. Like capital, obviously, the investors, they get their share of it. Labor is compensated through salaries. Then the land, the rents are paid for land, and then the government is also paid for in terms of taxes. That's how a traditionally funded company and managed company is operating. With the decentralized model, I tried here, and it's a little bit confusing, but I try here to take the analogy of how gross domestic product is created. Gross domestic product, if you look at the macroeconomic level in countries, is created, was measured through capital investment, consumption investment, and governmental spending. And within a ICO, you can have a look at it the same way. The capital investment, how much is invested into the infrastructure, how much is invested to create this network or to expand the network, how much is this network being used, the services are being used in this network, and how much is used to administer and to make this network work. And that together, we can call it, I mean, this is my invention, this is definitely not how shall I say, an official description. It's gross ecosystem product, like the GDP, this is a gross GEP. And token holders, they should benefit from the growth of this GEP over time. That's where the value of the token grows. Pretty much like in Ukraine, if the economy is growing by 5, 6, 7% a year, the Ukrainian currency will also increase in value because people want to use it, they want to spend it, they want to get paid on it. So the economy is growing quickly, and the Ukrainian currency is increasing relatively to other currencies. The same is with the network and the token. Token value increases when the ecosystem is vibrant and fast and moving forward quickly. So, any questions so far? Or is it too confusing? Because, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, maybe some example would help. You mentioned Telegram. If you can provide some example how Telegram could get the money for funding using ICO.
Maybe follow a transaction from start to end, meaning someone gives $100,000 and gets coins.
Yeah.
It's a year later, it's 2 years later, it's 3 years later, it's 4 years later. You know, that's kind of the example I need to track it and understand. Because it sounds to me the coin is equivalent to a share of stock. I'm getting some type of return. I don't understand the other value propositions yet associated with it.
Yeah. I mean, I come back to that. There are tokens which are definitely like a share or like a bond. And those tokens exist, and some companies are issuing this kind of asset tokens, which gives you the right to get a profit. And that's actually that's pretty much like a traditional equity funding. That's pretty much the same thing. Okay. But there are very few of those ICOs are existing. There are some instances where we have some. I know some companies which are doing exactly this. But that's not a real ICO. A real ICO is something else. It's based on the fact that you give away a utility token. And these utility tokens, you can use it to pay your services for it. You can log on the website and pay with your token. You can access to a service or to a platform, and you can also be paid when you use this platform and service. It's not like a share. You have no voting rights, you have no ownership rights, you have no property rights at all. The only thing you have have access to this ecosystem which is being created. Go back to this very simple example of Ethereum. What do you have when you buy an Ether? Well, what do you have? I mean, you know. But what do you have if you have a dollar bill in your hand? What do you have? I mean, this is a printed piece of paper. But what does a dollar bill allow you to do? I mean, you can buy a cup of coffee, or you get your salary in dollars. And with a utility token, you have a little bit more. I mean, the utility token is basically like a dollar bill, which also gives you some other functionality. You can actually, with this dollar bill, that would be a dollar bill which would also give you access to a nice, let's say, restaurant or nice club in New York. It has an additional functionality, but the dollar bill is not a share which allows you to have. It's not like a share of the United States of government. It's like a means of payment, and rather look at the utility token like a mean of payment, which is a little bit accelerated, which have other functionalities. Look, I mean. It's something which takes some time to understand. I mean, it's not.
If everyone would understand this really easily, then everyone would do the ICOs. So that's so So it's okay to.
We got pretty smart people in the room. And
Yeah.
But now coming here, this is a securities tokens. This is an alternative to utility token. There are companies which are decided to sell these utility securities tokens like a share. They have in the smart contract stipulated that every 6 months a part of the profit will be distributed to the shareholders. The problem here is so far they cannot be traded on exchanges. Impossible. Exchanges, at least official ones, are not allowed to trade securities because for a security exchange you need very strict regulations are in place in the US, in Switzerland, everywhere in Ukraine. If you have a security trading license, that's something which is very hard to achieve, and then you need international accreditation for the security exchanges. So far there are no official security traders exchanges which are accepting securities token. But that would be an alternative, and some companies, they do some sort of, I call it ICO in brackets, and issue securities tokens. They do that mainly towards doing a private sale where they reach out to a group of individuals and tell them, look, I mean, instead of going through these burdensome steps to create securities, which is quite complex, let's do a securities token. It's less complex and we can sell it and buy it peer-to-peer over the blockchain. Now, as a summary, I mean, when we start at the question, when do we believe that value innovation projects could be ideal, could be actually fostered or supported through an ICO? I think one of the key questions to be asked is, are they centralized or is it decentralized business model? Airbnb, for instance, would have been a great solution for being decentralized. Now they are centralized, they're making money, it's wonderful, it's great for the investors, they like it, they have been quite profitable so far this year, last year as well. But they could have offered on issue tokens, say, look, I mean, we create an ecosystem where the people who are renting those apartments pay with an Airbnb token. The ones who rent out, they are paid in that. That would have been a possibility because it's decentralized. With others, I'm not that sure. Apple, definitely not. I mean, this is a for-profit company. They're doing great. I mean, they have a centralized model. If you have a centralized model, you have two possibilities. Called traditional. It's a traditional financing opportunities. Or you can sell a securities token, which is pretty much the same as traditional, but the securities token are traded over the blockchain. Those are actually the two possible ways. So I'm saying it is possible to foster value innovation as long as the project is actually decentralized. Now, maybe a remark. The whole thing is still very new, has been around for max 5 years. And what is the future? I can't tell you the answer. It might be a solution for the growing numbers of sharing economy businesses where I am part of an ecosystem instead of only an investor or only a consumer. It might be a possibility. And I just looked up, before this presentation, I looked up how long it took that the stock company, the AG, Aktiengesellschaft, how we call it, how long it took place until the AG or the stock company was established. I mean, the stock companies, the first ones were actually established in Renaissance Italy, and then the first one was formalized in the Netherlands in the 17th century. But it took the people so much time to accept that there is a difference between the investors and the company, that the company itself has an own legal status, and that you actually can sue the company but not the shareholders. It was a change in mindset. And only with the increasing numbers of industrialized companies which were running industrial productions, and the need of additional capital and the desire to have more investors which are not directly related to company, this legal form was established and was successful. So it took quite some time. Now what we heard today, I mean, the businesses or the developments are accelerating massively nowadays. Everything goes much faster. But this might be, maybe not, maybe it is a new way, a new form of raising funds, which is suited to a new way of doing business. We are still in an observing phase. We see many projects, but we don't know what the future will be. Now come to Switzerland, because Switzerland has been an early adopter of this way of raising funds and has established rules and regulations which are quite strict, but they are pro-ICO. This is a picture of Canton of Zug where everything started. They have a big association, the Crypto Crowdfunding Association. And the fun thing is, some 10 years ago, all the Swiss were actually flocking to the Silicon Valley and looking how things are going there and all the startups. Now the other ways around is happening. I mean, I'm getting calls every week from some people from Silicon Valley asking whether they can come to Zug and if you can arrange for meetings. And, well, I have to tell them there's not a lot to see. I mean, this is not like, we see big companies, everything. It's just a nice lake, a nice little town, and people are usually disappointed because, I mean, they expect, left and right crypto money. The only thing you can do here that's interesting, you can actually pay for the incorporation in crypto. So in Switzerland, you need 100,000 or 20,000 to incorporate, and the government is accepting that in crypto, which is nice. You can also pay part of the taxes in crypto. So increasingly, the government of the Canton of Zug is accepting crypto money. So this is Zug. Now, the Swiss Financial Market Authority, the FINMA, is actually in charge of regulating ICO. And until February of this year, they did nothing. They just looked in the other direction. They said, whatever you do. And then they thought, maybe it might be a good idea to start some regulations, and they issued these regulations here for payment tokens, for utility tokens, and for securities tokens. I don't want to go too much into details, but the good news is here there's now a regulation in place which helps actually the companies to get some security about what is the nature of their token, because this is relevant. The best for them is if they get an approval from the FINMA, from the Swiss Financial Market Authorization, a so-called letter of no action. A letter of no action stating that the FINMA doesn't think they are in charge of, entitled to do anything, that the ICO can go forward with that letter, which states that the token is a utility token. The issuer of the token can go to an exchanger, at least one of the serious one, and show them the paper and say, look, I mean, we have a utility token. You can accept us on your platform if you want. Payment token, that's something, speciality of in Switzerland. I don't see a big difference between a utility token and a payment token. Here, a KYC is required with the utility token. Not even a KYC, not even a know your customer system is required when you issue the tokens. But I come back to that. And then here we have the securities tokens. Security token, you need a prospectus in most cases. So the advisors who are advising these companies to issue a securities token should create the prospectus. It's not very complex. It's like a white paper beefed up. But that's the only thing. The negative thing about the security token, it cannot be traded on exchanges. And then future requirements, we see a lot of exchanges in Switzerland. They have no regulations at all. Only they have to be member of a Swiss self-regulatory organization. So that's not a big thing. But what are the main topics? And here I'm coming now to the challenges. The FINMA regulations are not that complex to meet. ICOs coming into Switzerland, they have to set up an entity in Switzerland if they want to be regulated by the Swiss financial market authorities, and they have to require an assessment by the FINMA. The problem here is they have a passive backlog. And we know the people at this governmental entity quite well. And the challenge here is that they have maybe one or two persons dealing with such a pile of requests. And having looked at my white papers myself quite a lot, I know how complex that is. I know how difficult it is to assess these projects. Now, I imagine this poor governmental official who is facing this huge task, and within 4 weeks you have to give an assessment. So it's basically impossible. They have a big backlog. So companies are waiting, for the assessment from the FINMA. That's a challenging thing. The next thing, and that's actually quite positive, is the taxation. Switzerland, you have a system where you raise in 50 million, and in zero you will be taxed on that immediately on a profit tax level. First of all, the Canton of Zug has very low taxes, about 14%. So this is quite substantial. It's quite low. So in the worst case, you pay 12% on the 50 million. Now, what the cantons are accepting is a so-called ruling. You split the 50 million into 5 years. Every year, 10 million. And from this 10 million, you can deduct all your development costs. So in year 1, you have 10 million, minus 10 million development marketing costs. You remain with zero profit, equals 0 taxes. So if you do it right, and with that you can have in Switzerland a so-called ruling, which is a written confirmation by the tax authorities that they accept your way of you're going to be taxed, you end up with 0 taxes. What people forget is the indirect taxes, the VAT, something we discussed yesterday. How are governments actually going forward to benefit or taxing these companies? And we don't know yet, but one way will be to raise the indirect taxes, mainly the VAT. They can argue, and they will argue, that if you use your token to buy a service, you have to pay VAT. Regardless whether you're in Lithuania or in Germany or in Ukraine. How much is the VAT rate in Ukraine, by the way? Does anybody know? 20%. So the Ukrainian government will come and say, hey, you have to pay 20%. So the VAT will be a challenging issue. We are looking into that. Haven't found a solution yet. But
I have a question. We have to pay taxes if we are paying tokens as coins, as money. If we are using tokens as a gold, yes, we have to pay another taxes. When we have profit, we buy some coins and then we sell it with profit. We have to pay tax for profit.
well, that's on an individual level. That's as you as an individual.
As companies too.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if you...
whether
yeah.
the coin is money or whether it is a kind of good or commodity.
No, I mean, under the Swiss tax law, the proceeds which you make through an ICO, if you make 50 million, it is seen actually as a turnover, as a pre-sale actually of a future product or service, as a pre-sale. And you are immediately taxed in theory on that. But then we can, as I said, we can split it over a certain period of year. So we can reduce this taxable basis significantly. When somebody is coming after 2 years and say, look, I mean, I have this token, I want to use the platform now, it's actually not booked anymore, because it's like you getting a voucher from Starbucks. And somebody has paid a Starbucks card with 10 euros or $10 on it, and then you can use it. Starbucks has booked that already as a pre-sale and has paid taxes on it. And then when you use it, it's not going to be taxed. It's not even going to be booked. It's just that they actually discount your coffee you're buying from your card. So using the token is not triggering any tax impacts again, because in zero you have been taxed before. But that's a detailed tax discussion. I mean, I can discuss that maybe after this presentation.
So what happens if the 50 million the second year is worth 25 million?
What's that?
What happens if the value of the token goes from 50 million the first year, now it's worth
Yeah.
25 the second year? You're paying tax on the 50, now you're
Again, I mean, in Switzerland, you don't pay taxes because you have the tax ruling, which helps you to mitigate this tax impact by splitting the income over a certain time period. In other countries, I know Germany, for instance, you're going to be taxed at the day of when you raise the funds, and if you have bad luck, I mean, you end up with 50 mil. They look at it and say, hey, you're going to be paid taxed on 50 mil, and by the time the tax bill arrives, I mean, your value will be maybe 10 mil, I don't know, or 25 or whatever.
You said that you split like those 50 million per 5 year, and then you said you can deduct development costs. the
Yeah.
development costs include like buying Ferraris, Porsches, and stuff like that?
That's
Because
good.
quite popular in ICO world.
Yeah, that's quite popular. And no, I mean that's a very good question. We don't have an answer to that yet. In theory, no, because in Switzerland you have legal regulations which actually force the management to good corporate governance. So I mean, using a Ferrari or a helicopter for travels, or yeah.
So I understand obviously the value to the organization, right? What's the value to the investor compared to a traditional structure?
Again,
Where's the value add for them?
you are not an investor. If you buy a utility token, you are definitely, if you're not an investor, you are not expecting a return on investment. Most people do, but you are not. This is something different. If you want to be
But why do you want to do that? I'm a marketing guy, right?
Yeah.
So why would I want to do that?
Why you want to do that? Because people look at Ethereum. Ask yourself, if you would have bought Ethereums for $1,000 5-6 years ago when there was 10 cents, now you will be a very wealthy man. People believe in the project, they believe in the ecosystem. That's why they buy these tokens. And again, you are not an investor. That would be totally wrong to believe that you can make a return on investment. If you want to do that, you buy either securities tokens, that's fine, that's like a share, or you go directly on stock market and buy shares. That's different. I know.
I just don't get it. So.
Yeah, don't worry. You're not the only one who doesn't get it.
No, I understand it technically. I don't understand the human behavior. Exactly. That's my problem. I get it technically. That's a fair comment. That's a fair comment.
Yeah. First of all, people are irrationally, and next to that is you're becoming part of this community, and you want to be.
But there are barter systems out there that are similar to that today. When you say part of the community, I can't use the token everywhere to buy whatever I want. I'm limited in my selection. So there's lots of reasons not to do it versus do it.
There are lots of reasons not to do it, and and I'm not promoting this. I mean, I'm not saying that.
I understand. I'm just trying to understand the value.
I'm not promoting this way, this mean of financing, and certainly not of buying tokens. I'm not a promoter of that. I'm just trying to explain the phenomena and why it was possible to raise 10 million year to date. And the fact is that you see VCs now, I have only 43 seconds left. The phenomenon is now that VCs are increasingly buying both. They are buying into a company, they buy the shares. On the other hand, they buy the tokens as well. So they have a split of 40% shares, 60% tokens. No, but taxation is a problem. Now, quick thing on the banks. That's the main issue. And I think that's in Lithuania the same thing. Finding banks which are cooperating is quite essential. If you raise money, you have to transfer into fiat, and banks are very reluctant to accept this fiat money. So this is one of the big struggles here. Milestone timelines, 4 to 6 months at least. The first ICOs, there were 2 weeks. Preparation day, putting the wallet on the address onto the internet, and then raising 10 million. These days are definitely mainly for marketing reasons. And then here, this is just the last slide I have. It has definitely changed now. At the beginning, there were purely startup companies. Guys with great ideas, like the ones I mentioned with the hoodies, no money, great ideas, and they made it big. Nowadays, you see a clear shift. Projects I see, they are, backed by serious, very experienced business people with great track record, some of them did IPOs, some of them existing business, and that's also a challenge, because if you have a guy with an existing business who thinks he can raise quickly 35 mil, no. He has to change his model. He has to give up basically on his company and become a part of an ecosystem, and that's what they are not really aware of. So good, I think we are done. Yeah.
Raise money through a VC.
I like cash in hand.
Yeah.
500,000, took 30% equity, then I
just
blew
go
through that
put it
money,
all.
and then I do an ICO after that. What happens to the VC's equity
What
stake?
if I don't like that restaurant?
Well, the VC may have 30% of the equity, right?
Raise the ICO, the VC get 30% tokens out?
No, but the VC is a shareholder. He gets shares in exchange for his money, right? So the company itself is raising money through an ICO. So the shareholders, they get this money. The value of the company goes up because the company will have a wallet where they have 35 million in it, and the shareholders are actually, they can use this money to develop a project. But the VC is not. I mean, he's a shareholder. He doesn't lose the part of the shares he already owns.
So he doesn't get any of the tokens they could issue?
No, he doesn't get tokens, but he gets the wallet where all the money comes in, where all the Ethereum is. Maybe he wants to buy some tokens, but most probably not. Sometimes they do.
What do you think about the EOS project itself? Because they have the sort of voting potential there. What's your personal view?
My personal view is that it's crazy to raise 4 billion within a
Yes,
year.
that part is crazy. Just the idea itself that
The
like they
idea
will actually
itself
have
is-
decentralization
Yeah.
and centralization.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, this is a clear decentralized system, and I like that a lot. And I think that's actually where we are heading towards with this kind of financing. Now, what comes now is the capacity to deliver. I mean, these are great ideas. The idea to bring these developers decentralized together, wonderful. But I mean, you guys are all professional here. Miratech, I mean, you have experience how to manage with developers, and you want to do that on a decentralized level. All right, you have enough money to do it, but the money alone, it's not enough. I mean, you need a clear vision. And if you look at the founders of Google, look at the founders of Apple, all these guys, Microsoft, I mean, they were super high capacity brains. Look at Vitalik Buterin. For me, he's a genius. I mean, and even himself, I mean, he has a hard time to cope with the development of his own currency. He comes up with new solutions. I mean, you're aware that he has proposed now a possibility, which I like a lot, where you actually can vote on how the funds are used after the ICO. I think that's a good idea.
That means you can't buy your Ferrari.
You can't buy your Ferrari.
Squeeze it in. 50 million is like so easy.
And, but I mean, with the EOS system, I think wonderful. Let's see what's happening. I mean, the first attempt, I mean, they had to stop after 48 hours, I think, because it was flawed. But let's see. I honestly don't know who bought those tokens, and we don't know.
4 billion, right?
4 billion.
I mean, but for the countries like Lithuania, and why Lithuania was popular also in ICOs, is that for such small country like ours, it's really hard to attract investors from other countries to come and to invest into the small kind of companies who are from nowhere, like nobody knows where we are at all in the map, right? So, and then with an ICO, you have a capability to reach the global market, like the whole world, like, and investors from China, from South Korea, from US and different other countries can contribute because they believe in your product. So that's an amazing opportunity from the, let's say, from the entrepreneur's perspective, because then you can get enough of the funding, enough of the money to make your product live, So I think, there are plenty of, let's say, those bad things, what could happen, but also there are plenty of good things and why ICOs are so popular. And as everywhere, right, you can do bad things with cryptocurrency. You can, finance bad, let's say, authorities or bad organizations, but at the same time, you can do many great things. Same as with fiat currency, right? So you can still buy things in cash and nobody will track you, but you can do also good things.
I'm a big fan of using an ICOs to replace angel money. And to my view, I unfortunately am not the direct advisor of the Swiss government. I would put it differently. I would say, look, I mean, let's have a sandbox solution up to 5 million. Hey, we don't look, we don't care. You can do your ICO, raise your funds. Like you said, in Lithuania, it's really good thing. And then, if it goes above 5 million, should be regulated. But before that, we would say, look, guys, I mean, if you find angel friends, families, and fools who are paying for those ICOs, then it's a great thing. And it should stay like this, really lightly regulated. Above that, the system which is now in place in Switzerland is certainly a good one. There are other systems, but it gives you a good opportunity for young startups and especially also in remote places to get attention and then to do something out of it. Yeah.
Let's talk about regulation. When you talk about fools without family and friends, this regulation appears when these fools go to court and said that they paid and get nothing in return. So fiat money are regulated not because, partly because the country government want to control the fiat, but to make these fools struggle not so hard.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. I mean, there is absolutely a need for regulation, and I think the Swiss government is going in a very good direction. It's not killing the whole system, but it's regulating the whole system. I think that's important. On the other hand, it's always difficult. It's trade-off. I mean, if you regulate too much, you're killing, small companies in Lithuania. If you're not killing too much, I mean, you're inviting a lot of people with not so good intentions to participate. And the market will certainly be a regulator. We see that already. The regulations in the sense that, some of the projects which are not really valuable are just not moving forward. We see ICOs which are failing. Many of them actually failing. They don't reach soft cap. And others, they are successful. We don't know. Again, I mean, I think we are in the midst of a new development. We don't know where it's going towards, but I see that there is a lot of movement. And what Pavlov said today, and I think I want to close, is that, I mean, many people are depressed. We are not in a very happy world. However, and I think that's also what is driving me, when I talk to these entrepreneurs and young people who are doing these kind of things, I'm very positive. I mean, there's a positive energy. There's people who want to do something, and they are not all crooks and criminals. There are people who have great ideas and want to develop something, and that's, I think, that's something positive I like with this development. I think we close with that, and we have already run over time. Huh?